really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all this morning. My name is Dave Roscoe. I'm from Footprint Digital. We're a digital marketing agency based in Essex. I've been in marketing for about 30 years, and 20 years of that has been in digital. I started off my kind of digital days back with the Telegraph newspaper, doing sort of online gaming and things like that with them in those days. So over the years, I've been very much focused on the customer experience. Very, very important in digital. And we, as an agency, as I said, we've been doing digital marketing for a very long time. But we also do a lot of educational talks and speaks. We talk at various growth hubs. We're the speakers on behalf of obviously Make UK today, but people like the Department of International Trade. And what we like to do in these sessions is share some of our techniques and things that we've learned over the years. And what I'm going to hopefully do in the next 17 minutes is give you some real good pointers to take away that you can, some practical stuff that you can put into your marketing plans. Where this kind of started out with, we do a lot of work with Essex University. They have a great business school there. And we also go in and we teach on their marketing courses. And we were invited down there a few years ago to do a session to teach the students who were, they've all been top of their class. They were doing their masters. They knew everything in a book, but they really didn't know how to apply it in the real world. So we went down there to do a session for them called Digital Marketing in the Real World. And I'm going to share that session with you this morning. So there are basically kind of two things you need to know from a digital marketing point of view. The beauty of it is it's completely measurable. And the way to success is to measure, and then to test it. And that's pretty much all you need to know about digital marketing. It doesn't sound like much of a session, but actually that's where the kind of root sits for these things. But what we wanted to do was actually to explain to people how you go about that. So we do a lot of A/B testing in our kind of roles when we're working with businesses. And I'm going to share with you some of the tests that we've done recently with people to improve their digital marketing side of things. So I'm going to do 5 questions with you. We usually do this in a room. We get everybody to stand up, and if you get it wrong, you sit down. Obviously, we can't do that today, but you're going to get the opportunity to play along. Chris is going to share with you a voting mechanism, so you'll be able to give your answers A, B, C, or whatever as we go through. So please join in. So let's have a look at the first one. So this is an A/B test that we ran on a button on a website. So this is about a call to action, getting people to actually do something on the website. And we came up with 4 different variants. So it's get a free quote now, fast quote here, or reliable delivery. Now this business was a leaflet distribution company, so you were going to pay them to go out and distribute leaflets for you. So Chris, can we get the poll running?
With me, the irony of the session, the polling's not working this morning. So if you can kind of bear in mind and obviously have a think food for thought on which of the options you choose, and then Dave will be able to kind of enlighten us on the data behind which is the most successful.
Okay, that's a bit of a shame. Not to worry. So there's 4 options there. So make a choice, give it some thought about which one would encourage you to make action. I'll give you 10 seconds to think about that. Okay, so here we go then. So our test revealed that D, reliable delivery on the button, was the one that generated the most inquiries. Now, generally in the room, I would expect most people to get that wrong. Most people have a tendency to go for free quote or get a free quote because it's stuff that they kind of recognize. But think about here, the type of business that this is. This is a leaflet distribution company. If you're going to employ somebody to distribute 50,000 leaflets through people's doors for you, the main thing that you want to make sure is that people actually receive your leaflets. So getting them through the door, that reliable delivery side of things actually worked very well in this particular method. As you can see, that it resulted in 28% more inquiries. So kind of message number 1 or lesson number 1 from here you should address customer concerns in the content and the buttons that you use on your website. Really, really important for improving conversion rates. And that doesn't make any difference whether you're selling product or if you're in B2B and you're selling services or what have you. Think about your customer concerns, the things they might have. What messaging can you use to kind of encourage them to carry out the action that you want? Okay, let's move on to question number 2. So Lifesaver, really interesting business just up the road from us here in Essex. This bottle here, fantastic piece of technology. You can fill it with any old water from a stream, even Ebola infected water, literally anything. You can take it anywhere with you. You pump the thing 3 or 4 times. It's got this fantastic filter in it, and it will give you clean water. Now, they came to us, we were working with them. This was their original product page, and they wanted to improve the conversion rate. So we had a look at it and we thought, well, how about if we come up with a different variation on this page, and we'll put a bit of video in, some pictures of people actually enjoying the water and drinking it and things like that. So we ran these as 2 side-by-side tests. So 50% of people that hit the website saw version A, 50% saw version B. So 15 seconds, which one of those, A or B, do you think generated the most inquiries? Okay, time to make your minds up. Let's have a look. And it's option A. So actually in this particular test, we got it wrong. That's why we include it in here. It's really, really important. Sometimes you think, well, adding on a bit of video or some pictures of people really enjoying the water and stuff like that would actually really work. And it would be quite easy to make the assumption that that was going to be better. But in fact, actually, it wasn't the case. So that's the really important. If you're thinking about changing layouts or presentations on your websites and things like that, test it first. Really, really important. That kind of sums it up. Just don't assume. You'll only know if you test it. Question 3. Okay, Oasis Overland, fantastic business. Obviously been hit with the current COVID crisis, but they'll bounce back from that. You could jump in the back of that yellow van there and travel all over Central Asia. Fantastic business, really great way to see the world. And they do long trips. So these are like 3, 6, 9 month trips, those sorts of things, not sort of 2-week holidays. And basically they were running some Google ads. And what you see here are 3 variations that we created for the Google ads messaging. And you'll notice that the ads are basically the same, except they have 1 line different here. So we have great value, change your life, and worry-free organized trips. So again, 15 seconds for you to decide which one of those do you think generated the most click-throughs to the website and sales. So we've got great value, change your life, and worry-free. Okay, so let's have a look at the answers. And in this particular example, we can see that actually the change your life message worked better in generating 19% more click-throughs to the website. Now, you'll probably not be surprised to hear that the students predominantly went for A, great value, because that was the thing that was the motivator for them. Very often in a room, quite a lot of people have a tendency to go for C, and I don't know whether that was something you did. Certainly that was the one that I went for the first time I saw this, because I like things to be properly organized and what have you. But what they actually found was, come with us, change your life. That was the message that resonated with more people than anything. And what it's actually done is enabled them to actually even reposition the way they talk about the business. So when they do trade shows, when they're answering the phone, they don't talk about, hey, we're great value, or it's properly organized, or what have you. Obviously those things are important, but actually come with us, change your life. And it's a much, much more emotive message. So lesson number 3 here, try and find a message that resonates with everybody. Obviously those other messages are important in there as well, but find something that's going to work for you. Number 4, Fever, they're a digital agency, a website building agency, and this was their kind of traditional kind of homepage a few years ago. And we wanted to create a couple of different versions to try on their homepage to see if we could generate more inquiries for them. So here's the second version, so the first alternative, if you like, and here's the third alternative here. So I'm going to lay them all out side by side and have a look at those. So again, 15 seconds for you to think, which one of those layouts do you think generated the most inquiries? Okay, so let's have a look. It's actually C. Now, normally when I'm doing that in a room and I can hear people, there's a big roar of disapproval that goes up, because it is, quite honestly, the worst looking one of those particular sites. It's very dark. It's not something that people generally tend to think that they would want to put on the website. But let's have a look at it a bit more granularly and see why it was the winner. And bearing in mind, it was 268% more of a winner, so it's a massive amount. And if we look at it, although it doesn't look very nice, we have some very clear call to actions here. We have a very clear phone number, nice, easy links through to the website, some inspirational messaging here, and very importantly, a testimonial, all in that one kind of place. So this page, although it doesn't look very well, it doesn't look very nice, it's working very hard. So remember, when you're thinking about your website, don't worry necessarily too much about the design. Obviously that is important, but think much, much more about engagement. Does it resonate with your customers, your clients? And at this point in the room, normally we're looking to give out a prize. Obviously I can't do that today because it's going to be a little bit tricky. But let's push on and we'll go on to the last example here. And this is just a very, very simple test that we did on a contact form. So here is your classic contact form. And all we did was apply a little bit of color to it. So we tried a green background, a blue background, and an amber background. So here are the 4 options. There's nothing different about these forms whatsoever other than the back of the color. So again, 15 seconds for you to think about which one of those do you think generated the most inquiries. Okay, so it's the clear form, green, blue, or amber. Okay, so let's have a quick look. And it's the blue form. Now, again, that usually brings a groan around the room, because very often people kind of think of blue as a cold color, perhaps. Very often people are led towards green because they kind of think of that red, amber, green for go, traffic light kind of thing. And orange is another one that, again, that people often go for simply because they see it on lots of other websites like Amazon and things like that. The interesting part about colors is, and as you can see from here, that actually all of the colors outperform the white form. And if you think very often, and go away and have a look at your own contact form on your own website, very often it's quite difficult to see a form that has no color on it. You can hardly see the boxes. So every one of these, by just applying a little bit of color, actually help to improve the conversion rate. So the lesson here, very much value your contact forms. If you're in B2B, as I say, go away today, look at your contact form on your website. Does it actually represent you as a business? Is it actually going to help your customers to kind of make contact with you and start that journey with you? So just to quickly wrap up then, so 5 takeaways here. So think very much in terms of your website about addressing consumer concerns. Don't make assumptions. The beauty of digital is that you can test everything very cheaply, and if you test it, you will make those decisions based on great data. Think about your messaging, how that's going to resonate with your audience. What do they want? Not what you want to say, but what they need to hear. Think about engagement. Most people, as I say, spend far too much time worrying about that little pixel there, or this and there, or that color. Think more about engagement, and fundamentally value your contact forms. So I hope that's been quite helpful for you. Just a few things to really sort of kick off today's session and to get you thinking. Back to you, Chris.
Thank you, Dave. That was really insightful, and obviously well done to a couple of those in the chat. But we're getting a number of those wrong and then right. So food for thought to take away, and have a look at your own websites, I'm sure. But moving forwards, and I'm delighted to be joined this morning from a Make UK member in the East Midlands, Darren at Viking Signs, who have brilliantly been producing and been resilient at the beginning of lockdown in producing social distancing signs, and in collaboration with another Make UK member in the East Midlands. So happy to hand over to you, Darren, to explain a bit more about your longer term online strategy and the results of that more recently.
Great. Okay. Morning, everybody. So I don't have any slides to present. I've got a little bit of a talk for you. And I really welcome the opportunity to share, our experience as a manufacturer with other manufacturers. We're not a service provider or an e-commerce expert. We're just a manufacturer who was already completely sold on manufacturing on demand. And the growth in and switch to e-commerce as B2B channels had already built our business tenfold since 2006. We're a sign manufacturer. We came from a local sign manufacturing company, but now we're a volume sign manufacturing business, predominantly selling through e-commerce. And predominantly selling safety signs. And obviously through the recent COVID crisis, social distancing signage has become more important. And that's our on-demand model, and e-commerce channels have kind of combined to allow us to pivot really quickly and maintain our kind of customer supply engagement. So the focus previously came from my experience in the automotive industry, making to stock or forecasts, and as a consumer of the convenience of online retail. So fully embracing both these factors has meant we've found ourselves in an incredibly fortunate position this year, with approximately 3 times revenue growth since January. And what I want to share with you is only my opinions, but they've led us to be in a pretty amazing position as a sort of combination of those factors. I don't know your backgrounds or your levels of experience or how far you've already gone down the route of e-commerce, but I propose perhaps to take a step back to the start of our journey, and I kind of cook that up into a little recipe called the 5 P's of e-commerce, which for me starts with P1 is productization. So lots of manufacturers are making things on demand to customers' requirements, but online consumers are impatient and intolerant of friction. We want to feel like we're progressing towards the completion of an objective with each step. So I'm not suggesting the 5-click kind of model, but rather that each step you take when you're trying to buy something, you want to feel like you're moving towards your goal. And we, as manufacturers, have to do the work to turn our bespoke offerings, we can make anything, into the options that most people want, so commonly want products. So we did that with safety signs. We were previously making, whatever safety sign you want. We packaged that into a range of size and material options and designs that are products. We also offer customization of those. So as a manufacturer, we can also offer anything, but that's kind of the last resort beyond very varied product offering. So I'd suggest that's something to look at if you don't already have a range of, if what you offer isn't already packaged as products, moving towards that, even if you still offer complete bespoke, that's the way to go. So the second P of my 5 is paid advertising. So commonly pay-per-click, but also sponsored results. There's lots of different ways of doing it, but gone are the days of, you put up a website and buyers will buy. It's a crowded, competitive marketplace, and you will have to pay for traffic. So organic traffic is not really free. You have to do work to drive that, and there's very little space given over to non-paid results now in search engines. So Google is the king, and Amazon is the queen. So even on Amazon, where we're a vendor, you also now they are trying to increasingly get you to pay to sponsor your product results for them to sell it. So the big and there's a lot of data involved in this, and I absolutely would second Dave's point about data and A/B testing, that there is a lot of data generated in this. But as manufacturers, generally we're quite good at statistical analysis of data. So, any Six Sigma black belts out there, I'd suggest this is a great field to apply yourself to Google Analytics, to look at that data and be able to analyze what works best. Lots of agencies providing services, but I think if you can understand some of it yourself, that helps you choose the agency perhaps to do it and help direct their strategy with data analysis, that's a really good place to be. So the next P of my 5 is pace. All online retailers basically now are competing with Amazon, and they set the expectations on speed of delivery. So next day is standard, same day is coming, delivery charges are free, stock availability is great, returns are free, service is excellent, all those things that we're all used to as Amazon customers. That's the benchmark. They are getting faster and better at everything the customer cares about all the time. You can't take that personally. Lots of manufacturers, I think, are kind of in a silo where they say, oh, I can't possibly compete with that. It's not reasonable. Well, tough. That is the marketplace you're trying to compete with. We have two strategies. We try to be kind of fast following behind that, but equally selling on Amazon, because then you're in that space. So we make and ship everything ordered by 12 midday the same day for free. This is only possible if you can maintain your margin on the product, which as a manufacturer, I think is completely in your gift if you focus on that. So the next P is platforms. E-commerce used to be all about software development and systems. Well, now for me, it's about platforms and data connectivity. You have to pick a solid and open e-commerce platform like Shopify, for example, which allows you to share and manipulate your product data and launch new features quickly. If you can link this equally to an open and solid ERP or order processing system, that's how we operate. So we're 100% on demand. We don't have any end item product, and our issue is about management and manipulation of product data, so digital product data. So that's merchandising, production data, commercial data, marketing for over 50,000 end items. And that's where we've spent the effort in developing our own systems and platforms, now mostly using Amazon Web Services for the server architecture, to code the building blocks of the products, which allows us to systematically add more products and manage that data that gets bigger and bigger all the time. So I don't know how I'm doing for time, Chris, but the last one for me is personalization. So for me, this is the potential killer advantage of being a manufacturer in a field that's now full of box shifters and retailers. As a manufacturer, you can, if you set it up correctly, allow personalization. And as consumers, we expect more and more choice and differentiation. And the sales process, both on and offline, is a funnel. And if you offer a broad range of products which are close to what the consumer's looking for, you get them to enter the top of the funnel. If you show that the option exists to give them exactly what they want with limited additional friction, so don't make it take longer or cost a lot more, they won't exit your funnel. You will capture the sale. I strongly believe this is the future for savvy manufacturers, direct to customers, with requirements capture arbitrated, but even in complicated sales, arbitrated by e-commerce technology, which is getting better all the time, made and delivered at a pace in their market, so made locally, which again is to our advantage, to their specific needs. This puts us ahead of offshore manufacturing and Amazon at the moment. So that's my 5 Ps. I didn't know, Chris, if there's a mechanism for questions. I'm happy to take some questions in the chat or any other way that people want to ask about what we've done or how we've approached it, if that's useful.
Yes, so if you wanted to ask a question for Darren, please do so in the chat, or alternatively, you can raise your hand on the bottom of your screen using the reactions button, and happy to invite you in to ask Darren a question directly. But thanks, Darren. Obviously, a kind of good plan to follow, and obviously been some success recently. And as I say, resilient under the recent circumstances. I think there's a question just fired into the chat about the sales split for you, Darren.
Split of sales between direct consumer and Amazon. It's shifting all the time. I mean, previously Amazon was a relatively small percentage, but it increases all the time, and we have to work quite hard on our direct channels to maintain that in comparison to Amazon. So 50-50, something like that at the moment. But I know I've seen stats about Amazon's predominance in the US has gone past 50% of all e-commerce is on Amazon in the US, and I think the UK is not far behind that. And I guess we see a similar pattern.
Super, and will do, Dolores, in the chat. And brilliant, thanks, Darren. If there are any other questions, we can return and do so towards the end of the session. But moving forwards, we're also joined by another Make UK member this morning, and a fairly well-known brand in Lush as a high street retailer, but obviously more importantly, a manufacturer as well. So I can invite you to share your screen, and we're joined by Nicole from their e-commerce specialist team. You want to share your screen, Nicole, with the button at the bottom of your screen.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Hold on a moment.
Brilliant, thank you.
Is that okay for everyone?
Yeah, can see you.
Do that. Hi, yeah, I'm Nicole and I work for Lush. So I just wanted to talk to you today about our experience during COVID and dealing with the change in the customer behaviour. So where were we? So we're, as you say, a fresh handmade company with digital previously making up 10 to 12% of sales. So most of our sales were in retail. So when the shops shut, we saw a sharp turn very quickly to online. So some of the challenges that we had to go through was things like space. So we work in quite close proximity to each other in both manufacturing and our digital fulfillment. So we needed to make sure people were safe, introducing guidelines and safety measures, because obviously social distancing became quite an issue for us in terms of the way we work, especially in our digital fulfillment. So we were able to utilize the space that we had in manufacturing and open actually 3 fulfillment units so that we could space staff out efficiently. We also had an element of our staff, as did we have enough staff to pick and pack the parcels? So we were able to flex as a business and move people around the business from support staff, manufacturing staff, and local shop staff where the shops were closed for a period. Another thing that was very key for us during this time was communication. So both internal, which is very key to the success, is tightening in the teams from a customer care point of view, what were our customers saying, fulfillment point of view in terms of getting the products out, our online messaging and promotion, were we telling the customers what they wanted to know, our manufacturing to get the products to us, and our developers to make sure our website can cope with the traffic. So this was really important for us when we closed our website for a time to ensure that we had our space set up. So once we opened, we saw a huge demand from customers with that time out period from us. So for us working remotely, we had calls every day to make sure that everything was on track and people felt supported in the various teams. In terms of the challenge for us, we've always been set up as a remote company in terms of working from different areas of the business. We have multiple sites, so that wasn't an issue we didn't have to overcome dealing with working remotely. It just made sure that we had to strengthen our communications, and it only became stronger out the back of it. And then also the communication to our customers. So it's been touched on earlier, but it was pulling on the customers' needs and what they wanted. So during this time, customers were so engaged with how we were dealing with the situation, the measures we put in place, from any communication that was going out around that. Customers were highly engaged, and we got a lot of information back from our customers to our customer care. And what was important for us is to remain our 5-star customer service. So it was important for us to keep that line of communication of what the customers were saying, the messages and the sentiment. So definitely hearing from customers, because you could assume customers might want something, but actually they're asking for something else. And finally, on where we were, it's the stock, and making sure we had enough stock to fulfill our customers, which leads me on to my next point, would be how we capitalize on this change of behavior. So our biggest competitive angle is that we're fresh handmade cosmetics. So the advantage is that we could make whatever the customer wanted. So during this time, even though we had a lot of orders came in, we thought we can't cap our sales. So we introduced a unlimited stock. So no products went out of stock, and it meant we didn't cap our sales. In order to do this, we needed to work very closely with our manufacturing team, and we used tools like Google Analytics, our sales information, to be able to create clear reports that could predict what products we might be selling faster or what would be slowing down, so we could react super quickly, and that our manufacturing could implement a clear production plan, because they knew what was going to go out of stock for us before we needed to tell them. So that relationship was so key for us. What this meant is there was no limit to the number of orders coming in, which in turn meant we had a large number of orders coming in. We went up to about 400% at some of the weeks, and then we were tracking at 300 on other weeks, so huge amount of orders coming in. So we had to manage it from two sides, the team and the customer expectation, in terms of lead time and service, so communication and motivation for the smaller ones. So it took us the same amount of time to pack a big parcel as it does a small parcels, and we saw through this time it's recruiting customers, so ensuring we're optimization for customers signing up to our emails, so that we can talk to them later down the line and engage those people who might never shop for us for the first time. It was a different time for us in our service levels, so we want to ensure that those customers knew that our service was the best it can be. So what were our main takeaways? I'd probably say flexibility. So digital is all like an ever-changing landscape, and that was just amplified over the last 6 months. So I would say focus on asking ourselves, am I intentionally capping the sales? Is there something that is stopping the customer? So that we can always serve those customers as best as our ability. I'd also say partnerships around the business, so focus on what everyone's part is to play, and doing that to the best of the ability and connecting everyone in. And also mindset, so ensure everyone's mindset is in the right place. We have more orders coming in than we'd ever seen. Orders were, in the main COVID period, were higher than our Christmas peak. Interestingly, traffic wasn't at the same level, so going into Christmas, we're preparing ourselves for what could be. So we really had to shift especially from our fulfillment point of view, is the mindset. So previously we pride ourselves in clearing our backlog of orders right down. So we then needed to change the mindset to targets for the day. This is what you need to process, and celebrating those successes. As during the COVID period, we saw day-on-day growth, so we couldn't really measure exactly what the limits were. So it was to ensure the team had the right mindset, and that at one point we were getting more orders in than we could get out, but we managed that by our customer communication. So customers were very clear on the service they were going to receive when signing up to an order, so you had less upset customers coming through. We saw real positive responses, so that ensured that we had that connection in to our customer care team to say how our customers feeling, and then we can react to changes in trends, which the trend was when shops open, there was an expectation that there shouldn't be a backlog, and the same delivery service should be there. These were the fundamentals that we've taken away from the last 6 months, is probably act quickly. We're a global company, but we made sure we had a tight team, and we're run by founders who were supportive the whole time. We had clear sights on goals, so what made the biggest impact? Ours was unlimited stock, and the free delivery helped us shift that average order value. And communication, you can lose sight of something if not everyone's in it together. And I'd probably say for the next 6 months, we continue this mentality. I think it's been good for us. I think the connected teams, the remote working hasn't hindered us at all. And going into our biggest time of the year to set ourselves up for success for Christmas. So just to make sure that the customer has the best service, I would say if you can get the customers right, they will come back later. I hope that has helped and given people a bit of insights into what we've been doing at Lush. And again, I welcome any questions if anyone had any.
Brilliant, thanks Nicole. And yes, obviously continuing on again, if you've got any questions for Nicole, Darren or Dave, then please pop them in the chat. I think there's one in there from Douglas Anderson saying buying habits have clearly changed during the grand pause. How has everyone kept customers engaged? And if I could come to you on that one, Darren, to begin with. Bear with me, you're on mute, Darren.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was just answering another question in the chat. I guess it depends how you were engaging with customers beforehand. I mean, we were predominantly online before, so that's not changed radically for us. We're still doing a lot of paid advertising. There was a question actually before this that someone answered that couldn't attend about engagement with customers. So we use online chat, which is a really key enabler of conversion and stops drop-off. So if there's friction at the kind of point of purchase, being able to answer that immediately with chat, that we've seen an increasing use of that, and people appreciating that kind of qualified and skilled users being able to engage at the chat point that stops people dropping off, so losing people in the conversion funnel. So that's one way. And there's also a question about engaging with high potential customers, and we see e-commerce as a funnel for high potential customers. So we analyze sales of either by product or by customer sector, and concentrate on follow-ups with high potential customers. So a high potential customer ordering for the first time, regardless of order size, would get a follow-up call from us, particularly about kind of delivery quality, or did they find everything they were looking for? Do they buy this kind of product on a regular basis, and how can we help them do that better? So that's how we try to stay engaged with the best customers.
It's Dave here. So Nicole made an interesting observation, the fact that obviously when you put in your free delivery over 45, and what that did was that pushed up order values, which is obviously really important. We're seeing a lot of that, and COVID has changed the way that people are interacting on websites. There's no doubt about it. With some of our clients, we have sort of jewelry clients and things like that. They're routinely now selling £5,000 rings through their e-commerce platform, where people have never ever even tried it on. And people are just changing the way that they're doing things, and it's really important to kind of notice that that's happening. We're seeing that in pretty much all areas of online, whether it be B2B or B2C. And that the consumer now is so much more empowered. They know more about your business almost than you do, because they've read everything on your website. They know everything about your product and what have you. And the kind of focus has changed. So it's really, really important that your website is stands up to do the job.
I think one of the things that we make sure with that, and that's enabled kind of high value transactions, is using trust reviews. So we use Trustpilot as an independent review platform, and we absolutely focus on the quality of those reviews. If there's a review that's not good, that gets followed up very quickly and the problem resolved as soon as possible, and we will both respond to the review and talk to the person about whatever the problem was and try and resolve, because that's how people are evaluating the quality of your performance. And using an independent platform like Trustpilot means it has good kind of it's viewed as having integrity, I think.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. There's always some concern about using sort of ratings methods and things like that in case you do get a poor result on there or something like that. But actually, as a consumer, what we want to see, we all accept that things go wrong, don't we? We know that things go wrong from time to time. What I'm interested, if I go to somebody's website, is to see whether or not they've actually dealt with that query.
Exactly, which is why the bad ones sometimes are the ones that are the most valuable when you show you followed it up in an appropriate way.
Very much so, yeah.
I was wondering if you wanted to come in on that, Nicole. What's your experience of customer reviews, and is that something you display on the website, or how do you go about that?
Oh, 100%. We actually drive on our customer reviews. I think our customers can sell our product better than we can. We've had that through various viral things we've had. So we had Sleepy a few years ago, where it was nothing that we did. It was based on someone's recommendation, and the same thing with Dream Cream, which helps a lot with dry skin or problematic skin. That was all driven by customer reviews. So on our product page, we actually do a customer review focus. So we don't really talk about the customers ourselves. We let our customers talk about it, our products, and it's what our business has been built on, recommendations, and not moving on to other products because they like ours. And even when our website was closed, we had a few customers come in and want some of our products like Dream Cream, so we would just ship that product to them if they reached out to us, because it was something that they felt they needed as a necessity for their skin. So we wanted to make sure that service was perfect, so we would just send them a free product based on not being able to fulfill it.
I think it's interesting that we're at different ends of the kind of product spectrum. Nicole's product is very brand driven and people get passionate about it. You can get engagement about those products. Safety Signs doesn't elicit the same kind of excitement in consumers, but showing that we do a good job day in, day out, and we're reliable, and it's things people, if you want it, they know that we will deliver it. That's our service promise, if you like, and that's what we show through our reviews, is reliability and fast service.
If we just jump back a couple of questions, I know you've answered a little bit in the chat, but I was hoping you could elaborate a bit more, Darren, on Nigel's question around analysing customer groups when preparing your strategy. Do you prepare personas?
Yes, I don't know if anyone's familiar with that as a kind of marketing technique, but it's about, you could call them stereotypes if you like. It's about thinking about your customer groups, and we create a person with a name that is like a way of evaluating against, let's say it's John, who's the buyer, he's a health and safety consultant, he likes going to the pub or whatever, and you create kind of a rich character that you can then use to evaluate against content or products or pages, because when you start making that into a real, even though it's imagined a kind of a person with kind of rich details, it's much easier to evaluate content against that. Would John like this? Would John buy this? So we've used that quite extensively. It's quite a good technique of honing it into groups of customers. And, John might be the health and safety consultant that we're trying to target, or Ian might be a buyer in a big organization, or, we create these personas for different types of customer groups that then we evaluate a strategy against.
Yeah, it's a critical part of the process, isn't it? Understanding those different clients or consumers that you're needing to get your message out to, and then understanding their sensitivities, their anxieties, their needs, their wants, and how the content of your website or your marketing addresses those particular issues. And it will be different for each one of those different groups. Nicole, I'm sure this is something that Lush will have done.
Sorry, what was that question on Lush?
Sorry, I was saying that, I mean, have you done much from a persona perspective in terms of?
Not fully. We don't really, I think any customer has a different need depending on their persona. We don't like to break people down by if they're male, female, anything that would be gender splitting or profiling people. But what we do look at is the type of customers that we have. So we have quite loyal customers in terms of that. So fan clubs, we'll have people who, like we've said, like will know about what we're doing before we do. We often have leaks of anything that we're doing. So we would more split them into if they have never shopped with us before, if they've begun, like bought a few things, to our super fans and community. But as a profiling, it's not something that we do as a business, because I think everyone's need at any given time could change. Like one time I might want something else, my behaviour will change. So it's much more on that than who I am as a customer.
I guess there we see the slightly different sides of the market that Darren and Nicole therefore sit on. But there's another question for you, Nicole, what we haven't just touched on yet, is what has been the biggest impact of COVID that you'll be taking forward? Now, I hope I'm right in sort of interpreting that as kind of what's the biggest learn that you will take moving forwards.
I'd probably say two things. It would be the flexibility and not be fearful of change and just embrace it. If change happens, ride it, and it can be great fun. And I'd also just unlimited stock was our biggest win. You could do whatever you want on the website, but if you can't buy it, it's going to mess up any test that you do. So if you have the ability to stretch into that, to take it and make sure your stock level's in the right place, because then you're always going to maximize and satisfy that customer as long as you can fulfill stuff.
Is that what the sort of thing you were looking for there, Bipin?
Does that help?
Yes, it was really, but I mean, that's an overall kind of objective doing it. Any particular learning curve that you've had as an organisation? The reason why I ask, with what's happened and all the changes that have happened or accelerated, it's imposed a cultural shift in what we do, but also internally, not just externally. And have you had to manage any of that in terms of people coming to grips with all the new technology or the application of it? And so what in particular internally would you then say, right, that's really helpful, we're going to expand that, apply that, and going forward?
I think probably internally it would have been the understanding that, I think from a cosmetics point of view, people could deem it as you can't really sell that online because you need to go in and touch it. And where our sales were 10 to 12% of retail sales, when retail grows, we often grow in line. So we've always been on this kind of percentage of sales. But I think internally it was that we could actually we could make a lot of money online, but there's that growth, that is that consumer shift to actually be okay with buying more cosmetics on site online. Probably say it's kind of the belief that actually online is going to be a strong contender when it comes to cosmetics, and I think that's going to be across the industry.
Okay. Sorry, Chris, can I just ask one other question too? We normally don't get an audience like this. In terms of the experience that Nicole's gone through and having the confidence in terms of increasing stock levels to meet the online demand, is that something that's shared by everybody else in terms of pivoting the business as an entry level into adopting online as a strategy? It may maybe just be a short answer or not, I don't know.
Anybody's got any of their own experience they wanted to share in relation to that, then welcome to do so in the chat or pop on screen. But going back to your kind of learning curve and takeaway question, I suppose we could ask you that, Darren. What's Viking Signs most learned in the recent months, but you'll take moving forwards from lockdown and the pandemic, really?
I mean, I think there's general shift in business expectations in terms of doing this. For example, we were already I already had some people working remotely, but not everyone, and breaking down the barriers to that for me is a real positive, because we've had to do it. I've now broken some of the constraints I had in terms of office space and recruiting people at a distance, and all of those things that, you know, previously we thought were impossible or difficult. Now it's much more accepted. So I'd say those are big advantages for us going forwards, that's now much more accepted and normal. So that for me is a big advantage of what, you know, the result of what's happened. And also the breaking down of barriers to buying things online there's been a significant shift in that we've already talked about, the sort of threshold value which people were prepared to place orders for, and the decisions about trusting something and how to evaluate products. Again, the barriers to that I think have broken down, where people might have felt they had to touch and feel things, like the 5,000 ring that Dave was talking about. People have, if they wanted it, if the only choice has been to buy it online, having done that potentially successfully, now all of those kind of caps and barriers have kind of been swept away, I would suggest. So I wouldn't want to be in retail at the moment, frankly. I think it's got a lot of work to do to maintain relevance, and, you know, perhaps kind of narrowing of what we think of as retail is for is going to happen.
I guess similar to you then, Dave, is touching on a little bit of retail beyond manufacturing. You've got a great viewpoint across multiple sectors. What would you say is the biggest learn or takeaway that you've developed in your armory when consulting with businesses that are looking to either increase their online presence or improve their engagement on their websites?
I think what's been interesting over the period is actually, because it's not been business as normal, that people have actually had a bit more time to almost sit back and re-strategize and think again. And what we found in terms of conversations is that people are using this as an opportunity to kind of rethink what they're doing. I noticed there's a question in the chat from Douglas Anderson, talking about, you know, culturally making changes within business and things like that. And sometimes it's really difficult to know where to start. And if you're a marketer within a business and you're trying to bring change and you're trying to get the traditionalists in the business to actually kind of understand that, sometimes it's quite difficult to really even know where to start with it. And we always say, like, you know, go right back to basics. So think about who you are as a business, what you sell, what are you actually selling, who are you selling to, where are you going to find those people, you know, is there an online market for them, how are you going to reach them? Darren, when he was talking earlier, talked about you know, search engines, talked about, you know, different levels of paid search in, you know, different areas, lots of different ways to get your message out there. So you need to understand and find out where your particular audience are looking, and then build your strategy from there. And I think, you know, that's what people are doing at the moment. They're kind of almost kind of rescheduling what they're doing. You know, are we going to get a second wave? Will there be another big lockdown? Who knows? But as businesses, we have to be ready for that. And digital is one of the channels. I mean, you know, I'm a digital marketer, but I recognise it is not fundamentally the be-all and end-all. And, you know, but it can give you a lot of advantages. And very often your competitors may not be doing particularly much. And now is a great time. If you know, this is a good time for you as a business to look at it and see if you can get a margin.
If we can invite Mark Woodson in now, who's just asked us to join us and join the discussion through the chat. If you wanted to unmute yourself and ask away or share your experience.
Thanks, Chris. Just by way of background, I'm an interim specialist in retail to turn businesses around. I've been with a pet food business for the last 11 months, And when I joined, we were minus 8% like for like. And last week we were plus 15 like for like. So we've done that throughout the COVID crisis, but there's a number of lessons I think for all of us in this. Firstly, in terms of the digital has not been our route forward. We're only 1% online. However, what it has done, it completely accelerated our thinking as a retailer. And so we're re-platforming, we've got rid of most of the staff, so we're basically going hell for leather to go for that marketplace. And we've been lax in that. The second thing is, as a retailer, you've got to be relevant. And we weren't relevant. So as a value retailer, we weren't value. So we had to reappraise what our strategic positioning in the market was and make sure we hit that properly. And along with service. So service and value have been the two things in retail we've had to get right. The third thing is really, for most of you who are joining this session, is the opportunity to talk to customers directly. The retailer is no longer king. The retailer is just a channel. Your brands, your services, you can talk to customers direct. And I think the opportunity is humongous. And I would encourage all of you to miss out or miss the middleman. Keep the profit yourself. Don't be giving the margin away, and you can find a way of going direct to customers. They're used to now Googling, searching, buying direct. Whether you choose to do that via Amazon, lose a bit of control, or whether you choose to do that directly, I would advise you to reappraise, if you haven't done so already, your investment and strategic investment in talking direct to customers. Even though you may find 60-70% of it goes via the wholesaler or via a retailer, the opportunity, as Nigel just has shown us early on, is very much there. So I would encourage you to be bold.
Brilliant, thank you, Mark. And you've already sort of started answering my next question, Darren, in the chat. Probably thinking a little bit further back to 2006 when you began this process, and it's something we hear from members regularly, either across digital trends or kind of technological innovation as well, is that kind of cultural shift and need to get everybody on board from a staffing and colleagues perspective.
Yeah, I mean, we still have pockets of resistance to some things. There's people that like doing bespoke things because that's what we did in the past, and it's some of the things that we make that are bespoke are much nicer from a design perspective than safety signs are. But we sell a lot of safety signs, and that absolutely works for us commercially as a business, and that's fundamentally what matters. I mean, I'd say there's another thing we were talking about. In the past, launching e-commerce was a major kind of software project, and that's no longer the case. There are so many great platforms you can choose from. I mean, I think you have to choose quite carefully because some of them have kind of dead ends and limits to capacity if you choose the wrong thing, perhaps. So I do a bit of evaluation before choosing, but most of them are so scalable. From the very entry level is very low, but the same platform can be scaled to to being a Shopify is a good example, where you can launch a shop today and very easily scale that to a kind of enterprise level on the same platform with relatively little kind of transition costs. So the people that were saying it's difficult internally when it's it would represent such a small part of your overall business. And if you've got an amazing business selling to automotive manufacturers or something, and it's multi-million-pound business, and you could only in e-commerce sell a tiny portion, start selling a tiny portion, and then grow it from there. That's what I would suggest. That's exactly what we did. We didn't have the big part to kind of fight against, but that's how our business has grown, from making that work in a very small way in the first instance, and then just scaling that up.
Dave, what would you say to somebody that is kind of a sticking point in the business, that's not necessarily on board with a digital strategy moving forwards? I know we've mentioned a kind of a need to get on board and make it work. What have you kind of got a success story that you kind of refer to, or how would you? What's your experience of that?
I think it's the same for most businesses. You need to almost basically go through an audit process of starting point. So where are we now? Where do we know where we want to be? You should have a plan. What's your plan? You want to be over there. You want to increase turnover by 20% or whatever it might be, or we want to hit these new markets. And then to build backwards from there and say, well, look, let's be genuine. Where actually are we at this moment in time? What are the strengths and weaknesses of our digital offering if we're looking at digital? You know, how can we fundamentally understand if we're using the right messaging, if we're targeting the right people? And then you can start to build things. And Darren put an interesting comment in the chat talking about you starting with a small campaign to kind of test the market. And that's the beauty within digital, because if you've got dissenters within the business or people who are not on board with it, you can run very small tactical campaigns to prove your point or disprove your point, in fact. And that's the whole point, that digital is completely measurable, and you can then move forward and actually make your decisions not based on your gut feel, but actually on real data, and then you can move your business forwards.
Brilliant, thank you, David. And another question in the chat for you, Darren, around particular use and experience of WooCommerce.
It's not a platform I've used or looked at. That doesn't mean it's not any good. I just don't. It's not one that we've come across. The main ones that we've looked at are, as I said before, Shopify. We're not currently using it, but I wish we were. We've got our own platform historically, which we developed, that we're in a bit of an investment trap with. I would prefer to be using a platform like that, because we started so early and we've done so much development on our platform. It's hard to move currently, but that's something we're working on. So Magento is the other one I was trying to think of. There's quite a lot of people using Magento kind of at an enterprise level, but that does have more kind of transition issues. It's more powerful. It is a powerful system, but it requires quite a lot of system maintenance. The main problem for me with not having a kind of a platform, and a hosted platform even, is that as new features come, I currently have to develop those in my platform. So predictive search, or other kind of plugins to other features like the Trustpilot review things, for example. Most of the platforms, if you want to use an existing other piece of architecture, will have a plugin that allows you to do that out of the box. Whereas for me, if I want new features like that, which are coming all the time, we have to constantly put development effort in to doing that, where actually a platform, you'd get that as part of if it's a good structured platform, you get that as part of the offering that you're paying for as software as a service.
I mean, it's an interesting one. There's lots of different platforms out there, and people often kind of say to us, what's the best platform? Do I need to be spending, how much money do I need to be spending, this, that, and the other? It's really, again, is take a step back and think about what it is you're selling and what functionality you need behind. Because it's more with Magento, for example, it comes with a huge range of back-end features, and that might be something that your business needs, or maybe it doesn't. WooCommerce works for lots and lots of people. It's a good platform. It has limitations like all the platforms do, but it's more about evaluating what works for you as a business, what you actually need from it, and then taking some specialist advice in order to make sure that you buy the right one. It's, Darren, as you obviously you developed your own, and they say you end up at a point where you're constrained by that can be a problem for a business, and that thinking of changing away from that is a massive job, isn't it? It's a huge issue.
The point where we are focusing our effort now is on the systems that manage our product data, and using the platform to do that, because that's our massive advantage, is the range and the ability to deliver that on demand. So I want to be able to have infinite range of product effectively, and that's the challenge for us. That's where we're putting our development effort. The actual e-commerce front end part, that's where the platforms are I'd say better, and e-commerce has almost become an industry standard now. There are consumer expectations of how an e-commerce platform works, and if you put things in different places, either that can be good because it's disruptive, or it can be disruptive and bad. So I keep going back to Shopify because I think that every experience I've had with the Shopify site has been good in terms of the consumer use of it. So I think they've done a good job of reducing friction at the consumer end. And I think that's the important job of the e-commerce platform for me.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting point that you make, that it is about keeping up with what other people are doing. And, you know, if you're not in e-commerce, if you're in B2B, you know, again, as consumers now, we almost expect an e-commerce kind of experience wherever we go. We're so used to buying stuff online now that if we go to a B2B website to buy a service, but if it doesn't kind of help us, take us through the process and take us to a point in order to make that inquiry, and whether that, you know, giving me the various different options. Darren, again, you talked about using live chat as a service, and it's not for every business because lots of people can't support it behind the scenes and things like that. But if you can support it, again, it's a great way of engaging with people in a very live, you know, interactive environment. But, you know, one of the things I always say to people is go away and look at your competitors' websites. Look at your website, and actually, again, I might ask the question out to people, you know, when was the last time you looked at your own website? And often that might have been not for a month, 2 months, maybe 6 months even. Go and look at your competitor websites, then flip back to your website. Which one would you buy from? Who would you make contact with? And if it's not your own, then you need to start that process about thinking about how you're messaging and what you're doing.
I think just going back to online chat, there are many ways to support that, and that is a barrier for a lot of manufacturers who think, oh, it's going to be a huge team supporting it. But there are definitely ways to tier the support of that, and you can outsource the kind of first line tier. People tend to be uncomfortable about that. But I think even if you provide, like a software support, different tiers of expertise, so that it is supported as much for as long as possible in terms of 24 hours, 7 days a week. We don't currently do that, but it's definitely something I'm thinking about, because it is so, that's the more you can support it, the more likely it is to result in. And if you're paying for traffic to land on your website, that then doesn't convert, you're wasting money. So the more effort you make to make sure that conversion is good and reliable, the more likely you are that return on investment is going to be better.
And that's fundamentally what it's all about, isn't it? At the end of the day, any marketing spend has to reduce a return. And this whole process really is about incremental gains. It's about tweaking the messaging, tweaking the way that people kind of can make contact. I talked in the quiz about putting sort of emotive messages on buttons, for example, reliable delivery, or contact the experts, or whatever it might be. Those things we know through the testing that we've done make a difference in terms of the amount of sales or inquiries that come through. So it's a really, really important process in this hugely competitive environment for everybody anyway. And lots of people are kind of sleeping when it comes to digital, but they won't be sleeping forever. And it's really, really important that whatever you're doing from an online point of view, you now really put more focus on that and start to really think about how you're going to maintain your edge, your margin, and increase those sales.
Brilliant. Well, in essence of time, obviously, thank you everybody for joining us this morning, and a particular thank you to Dave, Darren, and Nicole, who have shared some insight and expertise in the discussion, but also in their presentation. So thank you very much this morning. I will share the recording following this, and to kind of follow up information. If you did want to get in touch with any of our speakers or myself, then I will also share. You'll have my contact details, and I'm happy to make an introduction to our 3 guests with your question and query. But thanks everybody, and have a great day, and look forward to hearing from you soon.
Thanks very much.
Thanks everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.